was thinking about tadpoles, right? I had some land tadpoles one time, and they turned into tortoises. I was pretty confused about that. Google tadpoles. Turns out what I had were tortoise eggs.
What the fuck just came out of your mouth?
I'm sorry, dude. That's I've been dying to say that all day.
Why?
I don't know. I think tortoises are cool.
It doesn't, but what you said doesn't make any sense. Tadpoles and eggs are not the same thing.
I know.
Tadpoles come out of eggs and then metamorphosize into frogs.
I mean, frogs are kind of like turtles.
No, they're not.
They swim.
Not turtles do swim, but tortoises don't swim.
Yeah, tortoises eat bugs.
No, they don't. Tortoises eat fucking vegetables.
So do frogs.
Frogs don't eat vegetables. Frogs eat bugs.
Tortoisei are green.
I'm colorblind. They're all gray. Everything is gray. So
That's something they have in common.
Thereby everything is in common.
And that's what they have in common. Let's move on. Welcome to Outrospection, everybody. I'm Rashad Davis, your host. And
host two.
We still on that?
No.
I think we're both host dash.
I think we're co-host.
Is that not fair?
I think we're co-host.
I think host dash also means co-host.
Co-host is the word I use.
I'm Rashad Davis. This is Hayden Bittinger.
Why do you have to say my last name? No, you can say my last name. I'm just messing with you.
Okay. And welcome to Outrospection.
Welcome to Outrospection. I don't know when we started doing introductions. I'm not that colorblind. I'm only red-green colorblind.
We've been doing introductions for the past few episodes.
And I'm not sure why.
I think it's kind of nice.
Sure. I don't really care. I care, but
in case they don't know who we are. This could be their first episode.
I don't know who we are.
We're making a terrible first impression right now.
Where am I? Mom, is that you?
If you want to cut off the podcast right now, I don't blame you.
Dad, why'd you never come back?
Is whistling good?
Yes. I like whistling.
I like whistling too. I whistle quite frequently.
I whistle all the time and get yelled at for it.
I feel like that's definitely a poll question for the Instagram polls.
Sure, if you make it.
Is whistling good, everybody? If you're listening to this right now, I want you to stand up and yell your answer at the top of your lungs. Is whistling good?
Unless you scare your dogs or grandparents.
Especially if you scare your dogs or grandparents.
Yeah, because we don't want your grandparents to die.
They'll die.
They'll die anyway. Is that what you about to say?
That's not what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. What are you going to say?
I was going to ask a question. I was like, they're going to die from you screaming yes or no?
Yeah, heart attacks, man.
Okay. Now that we've covered that very important question, next question: gerbils?
What about gerbils?
Yes or no?
Maybe.
Perhaps.
Why do you say perhaps instead of maybe?
I'm glad that you asked me that. I like it better.
Why do you like it better?
I think the words they're crisper to me.
Perhaps, maybe. I like maybe better.
I know most people do, but I like perhaps.
Maybe is like. Perhaps it's just like I'm like sitting in an armchair with like Chardonnay or some shit. Maybe is like more like physically maneuver. I'm like maybe this or maybe that. Who knows? It's more fun. It's more youthful.
I like perhaps because perhaps feels like I know. Okay, what else can we hit? I feel like we didn't finish gerbils. Gerbils?
Maybe.
Perhaps. Okay. Why does Hayden think he's funny?
Because I'm fucking hilarious is why.
This is a topic for another time.
No, it's not.
Let's get into this. Hayden, why do you think you're funny?
Because I think I'm funny. This is an ongoing topic, guys, and like I will make a joke and I will find it way funnier than Rashad does here, and I think
and everyone else in the room.
No, that's not nice. That's not nice at all. I don't know. I just have a very particular type of humor.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of absurdism, sarcasm, little fun. I like my jokes, and I just think my jokes are really funny. That's why Hayden thinks he's funny, because he thinks he's funny. Because I make jokes that are my type of humor.
Okay. What else can we hit?
You didn't even. Only I talked about it. What sort of co-host are you?
Okay, let me hit this one. I'm trying to get like a speed round real quick. There's a bunch of topics we can just bang, 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 bang. I think that you can be funny.
That hurt my feelings a little bit. Could you please extrapolate?
I think that sometimes you're not funny.
When am I not funny?
Oh, when you make bad jokes?
When do I make bad jokes?
I can't think of an example off the top of my head.
That's because I'm funny.
I can't think of an example of a good joke you made off the top of my head either.
Yeah, you could if you thought about it.
Yeah, I could think of a bad one if I thought about it too.
All right, think about it.
No.
Please?
No, we don't have time for that.
What do you mean we don't have time for that?
We don't have time for that. There are other things we need to talk about. The next topic, more dribbles, question mark?
No. They eat each other after a while.
Perhaps.
I don't want to see some gerbil cannibal bullshit in my cage.
Perhaps. Why hasn't Dad come home after he left to get milk?
Because he didn't love us.
That was a good joke.
That
There
was-
we go. We did it. We came up with a good joke. Hey, are
Yeah.
you satisfied?
Do we want to explain the context of the joke? Because no one else is going to get it.
First and foremost, we both have our dads in
Yeah.
our lives, very present in our lives.
Cool blokes.
The joke is a relatively dark joke about abandonment, which is a more serious topic that we just kind of brushed past.
Yeah, and it's been more of a meme lately. And while I was typing out show topics to put on our list, I typed out that question because I had other questions preceding it. And so it's like all of a bunch of normal topic questions, and then in the middle of the list for no apparent reason, why did Dad never come back after he went out to get milk? Mm-hmm. And there was no precedent for that. That's my kind of humor right there.
Thanks for explaining it.
Well, the people at home don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I'm just like lifting back the curtain.
Interesting.
That was the most pedantic thing you've ever said to me.
Even more dribbles, question mark.
If you mention gerbils,
Absolutely not.
if you mention
That's too many dribbles. That's like 3 now. And they were all with S's, so there might be more than 3, and that's just too many dribbles.
if you mention gerbils one more time, I'm gonna beat you with your microphone.
You won't.
No, I won't because it's expensive.
Full send, full send.
What did you just say?
I said full send.
Full send.
Full send.
I do not know what that means.
Of course you don't.
What does it mean? You can't just brush past that.
It's a conversation for another time.
No, it's not.
Hey, full send is full send.
Can you explain it?
Full send, full send, full send.
Can you please explain it? I don't like being left out.
Full send is basically when you send it all the way. Full send, you know.
And how does that make sense to anything we were saying? What do you mean full send?
Hey, dude.
How do you send something fully?
Hey, dude. Full send is full send, dude.
Is it like is it an expression?
It's a lifestyle, actually.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah,
How the
full
fuck?
send, full send, full send.
Can you give me some history behind this? I don't know what we're talking about.
Hey, dude.
Please don't fuck with me here. I'm really confused now.
Full send, dude. Full fucking send.
You can't play. I am emotional. You can't play jokes like this on me.
It's not a joke. It's full send.
What is full send? You just keep saying it like it explains it more.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break so that Hayden can Urban Dictionary full send real quick.
In rock climbing, ascend is a run in which a climber completes a route without falling or resting. To ascend is to complete such a run. The term, said to originate in climbing slang in the 1990s and possibly inspired by the notion of sending as delivering on a promise, spread to snowboarding, skiing, mountain biking, and skateboarding. In these extreme sports, to send is to perform a run cleanly and flawlessly. For the high-octane snowboarder or skier, going full send is like grabbing the bull by its horns, launching confidently into a run even if it means crashing spectacularly. This expression is evidenced by at least 2015.
Full send?
No.
Full send, full send.
What the fuck is wrong with you? I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I'm mad.
Yeah, you're crazy. You're a fucking lunatic.
You're right.
No, you're not. You're actually pretty tame.
Hey, dude, no, full send.
Oh my swear! I swear. It's not even like I thought the expression would be much more interesting. It
No,
wasn't.
guys, it just means that I work at Zoomies.
Is that what they say at Zoomies?
I say a lot of things at Zoomies. I love Zoomies, by the way. Zoomies is excellent. I
Is
work
that
at
because it's a
Zoomies
skateboarding store and that's a full send thing? You full send when you do the flip kick tricks
Yeah,
in your vans?
I've definitely heard people say full send at Zoomies.
What else do they say at Zoomies?
All sorts of things.
Not things we're publicly sharing, is it?
I mean, I could. I'd have to go through the memory bank, and we don't have time for that kind of stuff. Okay, so we hit you with a plethora of topics, a plethora of things to think about. You know, I feel like all of the viewers at home, that if you're sitting down right now, if you'd like to take a minute to just pause the podcast and think about all the things that we just said.
I feel like they had to do cocaine before they started this episode because it just got really out of hand really quickly, and I don't know why. How did you feel this whole time we weren't recording?
I would be so mad, dude.
I
I would literally leave.
I would cry a
I
little.
would literally leave. I would be done. I'd be
That's
like,
gonna happen
fuck
one
this
time.
shit. It's going to. And it's not gonna be today. Let's talk about album cover designs.
Album cover designs. Now, if I was a dog, my ears would have just perked the fuck up.
I think that the best album cover that Prince has ever done is Musicology.
Really?
No.
Yeah, Musicology would be good if it didn't have the early 2000s like font for the word musicology. It would have been great because that's like a good marble-ish, whatever the material was, background that was taken by Afshan Shahidi.
My baby girl's father. I'm sorry.
Flying right past that one.
I'm not gonna say my baby girl. I'm gonna say my wife. Yara Shahidi, if you're listening to this, I very much want to marry you.
Flying right past this one. If it had just been that shot, it's a decent shot. It would have been better. Or if it had been a different font even, because the font doesn't even go with the album.
My favorite album cover design that Prince has done is 3121.
Really?
Yes.
So that's also done by Afshan Shahidi, right? Mm-hmm. It's the album that came out 2 years later. It's the
Shout out to the Shahidis. They're fire people.
yeah. My favorite album cover is I don't know. I haven't really thought about the favorite album cover because I'm too biased by the actual album. But why are we talking about Prince albums? I said album cover designs in general.
So how do you guys feel about album cover designs?
They can't.
I wasn't asking you. I was asking them.
I wasn't. I was saying they're not fucking here. Don't snap at me, you little bitch, baby.
Oh, that brings me to another topic that I thought about.
What?
Just a quick pit stop.
This is the cocaine episode.
How do you feel about snapping turtles?
So I was driving.
I think that snapping turtles are the.
Interrupt me one more time and I'm gonna pull out your teeth.
You won't. Full send.
No. One day I was driving with a friend of ours, and we were on the road, and we saw a fucking snapping turtle like in the middle of the street trying to climb like the curb and
For
shit.
real?
Yeah.
They're here.
There's always been snapping
I'm
turtles.
moving.
Anyway, we saw it, and her and I are like, we have to go save the turtle. And I'm like, fuck, that's a snapping turtle. And she's like, fuck it, we did not get out of the car. If it had been any other type of tortoise or turtle, we probably would have moved it.
I like turtles.
But I saw that shit. It was a snapping turtle. And I'm like, I'm not losing a finger for that motherfucker.
Yeah. So
It's the dumbass in the middle of the street.
the way I feel about snapping turtles is that I like corgis, and I think snapping turtles are pretty much the opposite of corgis.
Snapping turtles are hell corgis.
They're the opposite of corgis.
They're the same size, relatively speaking. I probably weigh about this.
Who would win, a corgi or a snapping turtle?
Fucking snapping turtle.
A snapping turtle would win. I don't want a corgi to win. If a corgi could win, it probably wouldn't be as enjoyable of a creature. Like,
Did you ever watch the Turtle Man show on Animal Planet growing up?
no, I didn't watch any of the shows on Animal Planet growing up.
Oh, okay, that was just me.
You're the only one.
I am not the only one. Like, comment, and subscribe if you have watched Animal Planet as a young child.
I want you guys to smash that like button. Full send, full send.
Smash it like a Tinder date. What is all right? Full pause. I'd like to formally apologize for whatever the fuck this episode has become. Earlier, I was like, we shouldn't record this today because we're both too tired. And now we're both here and we're just like shitting electric bricks.
Hayden said, drink lots of caffeine before we record today.
Because when you're tired, you talk slowly. When you talk slowly, I have to edit.
Am I talking slowly today, Hayden?
I don't know.
I'm in full send mode.
Oh my God, I hate this. Are we going to blow past the fact I said shitting electric bricks?
When you see it.
What?
Remember that meme? So when you see it,
No.
and it would be like a little demon girl in the background of like a seemingly normal basement, a seemingly normal dark unfinished basement. It'd be like when you see it. It said when you see it, you'll shit bricks.
No, I said shitting electric bricks. That's a band name right there.
Not my band.
Not your band, but a band out there.
So back to album cover designs. I think that was a nice. I think this is a nice seg. And by seg, I totally just mean.
What makes a good album cover?
It depends on the music.
No, but just think about outside of the music. Outside of music, like you don't hear any sounds. But what would you define as a good album cover?
It's striking.
It's striking. I guess you kind of have to interpret the music because it has to represent what the album is. Mm-hmm. I feel like.
Or not, or just totally not represent what the music is.
Yeah, but I don't really like it if it doesn't represent it. I feel like the album cover should be some sort of visual representation of how the artist feels their sounds look.
Perhaps. Or it could not.
Yeah, but why would you not do that?
To fuck with people?
But why would you do that?
To fuck with people.
I get that, but at the same time, I feel like I feel like there's a certain I feel like if your album has a I like to fuck with people vibe, you can do it really to fuck with people, right? Like if you have a very explicit album, you could do a very tame album cover, and that's like I could
That's
feel it.
kind of what I'm talking about.
But at the same time, if you're like a gospel singer, and you have like a crazy fucking like punk rock looking album cover just for shits and giggles,
That'd be awesome.
No, but you know what I mean. I feel
I
like
don't think gospel people want to fuck with people.
that's what I'm saying. Like if I feel like there's a point where you can fuck with people with your album cover, or I feel like there's a certain point in like there's that line in the sand I'm always talking about where yeah you can fuck with people because it kind of goes with what you're going for. But if you're just trying if your album cover is just to fuck with people for because you think it's funny and it doesn't really serve the purpose of the record, I think it's a bit out there.
I mean, obviously, it's not to just fuck with people. Like it would be like it'd be. It's part of branding. It's all about branding. You want your album to represent what you're trying to put out. When I say depends on the music, it depends on what kind of message you're trying to convey.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, now you've said it.
Yeah. So a good album cover is striking. It represents to an extent your brand or the music.
Yes.
And what else makes them? I think they just have to be artistically pleasing.
Not particularly.
All right. So, and I think I've noticed this in the past release that I am more prone to like classically beautiful things, I guess is the way I'd put it. More so things that like are beautiful, like as like that's the word I would use from things that are like pretty to look at, things that are pleasing to look at. And I think there's this kind of movement in art that I've never been really receptive with, in which they try and make ugly things pretty to look at. And my example of this that I came to mind is A Nightmare Before Christmas or other kind of like Tim Burton claymation things.
Let's just be clear. I don't fuck with A Nightmare Before.
I really don't either.
I mean, I like the movie. Like, don't get me wrong.
I hate
think the movie's good.
I think it's terrible.
I don't really like the animation style.
I hate.
And
the
I know that there's
animation
going to
style.
totally be some furries that are going to get super mad about me saying
It's so gross to look at. It's not pleasing to look at all.
No, it's not.
It's just kind of yucky.
It's not kind of yucky. It's yucky. It's not nice.
And like all that, and that I feel like, and there's this part of art, and like especially like in drawn art, like that is something that I am not a big fan of. Where it's like they try and make it's like these ugly things that are supposed to be pretty, and I don't fuck with them.
I mean, I think that I do like that stuff actually, personally. I
Yeah,
feel like
that's why I think it's good.
I like things that are interesting. Like the most prominent example that comes to my mind is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. I think that's a great example.
Because that album in no way is classically beautiful. It has him fucking a demon Phoenix lady on the cover.
Yeah, and I don't really mess with that.
I think that's when the music comes into play. That's like the music. Like not all music is beautiful. When I think about great album covers, the first thing that comes to my mind, and I don't think it's the best album cover of all time or anything like that, but the first thing that comes to my mind is Nevermind by Nirvana.
The one with the baby on it. For all those who don't know,
I think that album cover is fucking excellent.
Why do you think it's excellent?
It's just great. Like the way that it captures kind of like the idea of this like innocence being like kind of like this innocence kind of being
Destroyed,
like corrupted more so, really did feed into the kind of idea of the music that we were having. And they have songs like Smells Like Teen Spirit, which isn't really about Teen Spirit or anything like that, but like the sound, it goes with the sound of the album. I feel like it really like encapsulates what's happening. I don't want a beautiful artwork for an album that doesn't sound beautiful.
Yeah, and I think this is actually.
No, don't get me wrong. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy does sound beautiful. Well, I think that the artwork is beautiful. I think that it's beautiful in its own way.
And this is, I think, another difference between you and I is that and I think this has happened in the past, where you can like music that doesn't sound necessarily quote unquote pleasing. It can just sound good. It sounds good. It's well made, right? But it captures a non-pleasing aspect of art that some people are really into, and that's the whole
like
thing.
what, for example?
I don't know. I can't think of a specific
Like
example.
Yeezus?
Kinda, yeah, like Yeezus.
Yeezus is my second favorite Kanye album of all time, by the way.
Why do we always end up talking about Kanye West and Prince?
Because we like Kanye West and Prince.
Moving forward, because Yeezus, while I can tell it's good, it's kind of like it's gratuitous. There's that kind of gratuity, and not gratuitous doesn't like gratuitous nudity, but like that kind of weird corruption of things like that I have never been into with art. Whereas like when I think of something like all the things that I find really artistically pleasing are generally speaking more cleaner, constructed. I don't even know. There's probably a super like much more artistically intelligent conversation out there
Like
about
like refined type shit.
yeah, not even refined because refined makes me think of like too much stuff, but it's just like it is beautiful is the word I would use, right?
I think that the reason that I personally feel like like artwork that isn't particularly, for lack of a better term, beautiful, is incredibly effective in a lot of ways is because it it adds a very human element to the music.
I'm snapping because I realized something. Continue. Sorry.
When I talk about Yeezus, and I'm not just trying to talk about Kanye, I think Kanye and Prince are good case studies for music.
Yeah, I think so.
They have relatively wide discographies on which you can like talk. They have a pretty strong influence. Yeezus is by no means classically beautiful. It is the opposite, but I feel like it's one of Kanye's most human things he's ever done. It feels like him. It feels like him, unfiltered and raw and uncut. You know, if you were to listen to this podcast with us talking without any editing done to it or anything, it's kind of ugly. But if you listen to the podcast and after it's polished and more edited, it kind of sounds beautiful. But if you were to listen to it unpolished, then you would hear some of the very human aspects of it.
And I think this is like I think we just hit like the perfect note. I think you like human things more than I like human things. I think I like things that are like more celestial is the word, godlike, and that's kind of, and we're always going to bring up this Prince and Kanye thing. Now I've realized Prince often like in his whole life was about like suppressing the pure humanity and creating this image for people to look at. Here, my private life is over here. The human part's me over here. Here is this deity-like mysterious creature for you to look at.
And that's Kanye West, on the other hand, I feel like I feel like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy sums up Kanye West perfectly.
And I think
like just the title.
Exactly. And I think that's perfect. And I also think you referenced the podcast. If you were to edit this podcast, it would come out way different than if I edited it. Yeah. Because mine, I try and make us sound as smart as possible, which sometimes could have us lose our humanity. But if Rashad were to be doing it, we would probably come out sounding more human, more, gratuitous. You get more of the rawness of it, but it would be more human, which would have that kind of beauty aspect. And it's this, and it's that this dichotomy we've been talking about throughout this whole conversation, this godliness versus this extreme humanness is the best way, like that type of art, a romantic painting versus like the pure geometry, this is like Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel, that kind of art versus Picasso right here, whereas like that's like Michelangelo is literally godliness. And that's what he's painting. He's depicting things as beautiful and as exaggerated, but within, the realms of nature, and everything so detailed. Whereas Picasso, it's more of like what the universe is. The universe is made out of math and geometry and physics, and that's what he's representing on his canvas.
I feel like even more than that, though. I feel like what you like artistically is art that represents what you aspire to be.
Yes.
And I like art that represents what we are.
That is the best way to put it. You just summed it up to a T. Like
I feel like when I hear songs like "I'm in It" off of Yeezus, that song is one of the most gratuitous songs I've ever heard. But at the same time, there's like a very strong, like sharp vulnerability that he doesn't quite tap into. Like don't get me wrong, "Runaway" is my favorite Kanye song, but he doesn't quite tap into the kind of vulnerability that he does with that song because of how gratuitous it is. Because My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is Kanye trying to make a perfect album, and it's the closest thing to a perfect album that he's made. And I like that. Like, don't get me wrong, I like perfect art. I like art that's made to sound perfect because it sounds good, and like there's technique that goes into making things like that sound good. But when you strip all that back, there's also incredibly interesting layer of that part of what makes art really, like, makes it really easy, like interesting and really more relatable in art is when art is human.
And I think what you just said is the perfect, like, I can reflect on that too, and that some of my favorite Prince songs are more human sounding songs where you can almost hear him breaking down on the microphone, but it's it's just the way it's composed. And I think I aspire upward. That's kind of like my interest in art. But when things are human, I still like love it in the same way, you aspire to the humanity, but love the things that are perfect, like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And I think this plays into another thing we've talked about before and never really hit the note on. You believe in allowing yourself to experience the pleasures of life. That is an inherent thing you believe.
Yes.
I would not say that is an inherent thing I believe, because I am like, a lot of times I can be Mr. Self-Discipline. Here are the things you don't do. I'm very much so focused on being the perfection of my morals a lot of the time. I give myself very little room for mistakes and very little room to not follow my chosen path.
I'll take it a step further and say that I inherently believe that sometimes we need to fuck up.
I try not to fuck up as hard as I can.
I feel like we need to fuck up to know how not to fuck up.
I feel like you can just know how to fuck up. I mean, I agree with that. Like, I agree that you can learn from your mistakes, but I also try not to make the mistakes in the first place, because then you don't have to go through that horrible process.
I feel like the process is part of what I feel like the process is really like a thing that there's a lot to be learned from.
This could totally seg into the other topic that we've had before, is like, is death necessary? Because I question whether or not death is necessary because of some of the media I've consumed. Like, do we really have to die? And Rashad's response to that was like, well, of course we have to die.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
nothing is forever.
But do we have to die?
I think we do.
Why do we have to die? If we could cure death, why wouldn't we?
Nothing means anything except for black holes.
Black holes don't mean anything.
Exactly.
That's just an oxymoron then.
Think about it. Black holes are growing, right?
Not necessarily.
They continue to consume mass, right?
Yes.
Do they ever stop consuming
energy and mass?
Do they ever stop consuming energy and mass?
I don't know enough about black holes for this. And I'm pretty sure I know more about black holes than you.
Well, that was pretentious.
But it's true, is it not?
Not particularly.
All right, what do you know about black holes?
Big sucky. Full send.
If you would like to buy one of your own big sucky today, please call 1-800-696-6969. What was it? Was it last episode? Well, when were you there? When I'm like, my social security number is 777777775. What context was that in?
I have no idea.
I think we were on the phone with a friend of ours, and she asked me my name.
Yeah, I remember.
No, this was in the Starbucks a couple days ago, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't in the Starbucks.
It was over the phone. And one of Michael and I are on the phone with a friend of ours, and she goes, "What's your full name?" And I say my full name, because she wanted to know my middle name. And then she goes, "What's your social security number?" Because that's the joke, is like, asking someone for all the details.
We were sitting at the table.
Yeah,
I remember
we were sitting
this
at
now.
Rashad's kitchen table, and I go, and I'd say this, I say exactly like this: my social security number is 777777775.
It was great.
And the way I said it was just, I guess you had to be there. The way I said it was so confidently, and every time I added a 7, it got more confident.
It was great.
And then I threw in a 5 for good luck. Mm-hmm. It was just,
you threw in a 5 for good luck in the sea of sevens.
Yeah, exactly. And isn't 7 like a lucky number?
It's like the lucky number.
Yeah, 7s and 3s are good in the West, and 8s are good in China.
Like
4s are very bad luck.
666 are good.
I don't say those things on my podcast. Those are actually, and this is, I'm not would you call me a superstitious person?
I think that you say you're not superstitious, but very much are.
I feel like I try very hard not to be superstitious, but like the insanity of my brain and having to question everything and being super paranoid makes me a little bit superstitious. This year for my calendar, last year I did symbols for every month. When I'd cross off a day, I do like a symbol of whatever the month reminded me of. Like,
now you just do the number.
I did suns for June last year. This year I do the number, and I had to write 6 for June, and then I skipped a 6, wrote a 6, and then wrote the other 6 in on the 3rd, because I did not want to have 666 written out for any period of time.
That's kind of crazy. I feel pretty comfortable with 666, given the fact that I personally don't really believe in hell or the devil.
Why don't you believe in hell?
I think when we die, our energy is transferred to a field of energy.
Okay, so you don't believe in a heaven either?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm interested in. I'm not.
Oh yeah, I just think that everyone goes to heaven.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? All right, here's the thing for you. You know how like they show pictures of when a famous person dies, and they show them at like the pearly gates, and they show a bunch of other people in heaven. Mm-hmm. Like there's memes like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, did all those people really get into heaven? Like one of them I saw today was because a YouTuber died. I think by the name of Etika or however you say it. It was all
I
over
don't know how to
Reddit.
say that, but R.I.P. to that YouTuber.
Yeah.
I can't say much about the situation. I didn't really watch his videos, but it sounds like it's a pretty tragic situation, and I know that he was a pretty popular YouTuber, so R.I.P. to him.
Yeah, and I saw, this meme, and I know this is going to bother you, Rashad, but Michael Jackson was there. Now,
I like Michael Jackson.
We like Michael Jackson, right? But some people believe that he is a pedophile, and I don't know enough about this case to
I genuinely do not believe.
voice my opinion. But if he turned out to be a molesting pedophile, would he go to heaven?
I think that if he turned out to be a molesting pedophile, then when he died, his energy would be transferred.
No, but like, say heaven and hell are real. Would he go
I
to
will not say heaven and hell are real.
But for the sake of the hypothetical.
Hypothetically speaking, if Michael Jackson was a pedophile, which he was not, then he would probably go to hell.
And my whole thing is, and I think about these memes, like, and they have like this giant wall of people basically. And like even Harambe was there. Do gorillas go to heaven?
I think that's
an episode title right there.
I think that it would be fun if everyone went to heaven.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? But does everyone deserve to go to the hypothetical heaven?
Hypothetically speaking, as hypothetically as we can get it, if there was only heaven and everyone went, life would be so much easier.
Would it be easier, or would people be more free to do bad things? I mean, this is a conversation I've had with people about.
I think that if everyone went to heaven, people would be less afraid of death.
That's probably true.
And so even though people would be more free to do bad things, people would be less hurt about it.
Yeah, but the whole point of the universe should not be that people are less hurt by people doing bad things. We should try and get people from not doing bad things.
This is a whole other seg that's gonna just.
We have blown through like 4 topics here. We were on album covers, and then we got talking about art and how our opinions on art, and then now we're just here.
And now we're here.
What's some other topics for us?
Okay, this is interesting. Do you have to listen to all of an artist's music to be considered a fan?
No.
I think so.
I disagree. We've had this argument a million times now, and we started having it before we were recording yesterday, and now we're having it again now.
Viewers at home, this might be one of the more passionate arguments that you might hear on the Outrospection podcast. If you are weak of heart or faint-hearted, or what's the phrase I'm thinking about?
I think it's faint of heart.
Faint of heart. Yeah,
I have no idea.
If you are of the faint of heart and you can't deal with two
Conflicts.
adult teenagers, that's what we are.
Yeah, you're right.
You can't deal with 2 adult teenagers arguing about something that doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of anything. You should probably turn the podcast off right now.
All right, to get started with this thing, do you want to me to lay down my general idea and you to lay down your general idea, and then we can try and work from there?
Yeah, let me go first.
Well, what if I want to go first?
Rock, paper, scissors. No, 2 out of 3.
Fuck.
Let's go. So I think that in order to consider yourself a fan of an artist, you need to either listen to all of their albums or attempt to listen to all of their albums. Of course, there are artists like Prince where that's very difficult to do, because he has so many fucking albums. But I feel like if you're the kind of person that listens to, that has heard a few songs, and you are like, yeah, I'm a fan of this artist, I wouldn't say that's necessarily fair.
Define attempt to listen to all of their albums. Like you listen to all you could.
You listen to everything that you have access to. Define
have access to. This is very semantic.
Very semantic. There's nothing semantic about have access to.
What do you define as have access to?
What do you mean? What do I define as have access to? What they can access?
What they can listen to. But do you mean, does access count as they are able to buy it?
No, not at all.
So that if they have access to it, like it's in a store.
No, not just in a store.
But just give me this one example. If it's in a store but they don't have the money to buy it, do they still have access to it?
Yeah, we live in the internet era. You can bootleg music.
But I feel like bootlegging is like the Hitler of this debate, because
I don't think bootlegging is like the Hitler of this debate at all. It's the Hitler of this debate for you because it kind of invalidates a whole lot of the argument that you're about to make. But I feel like bootlegging,
and it's wrong.
I don't necessarily think that it's wrong. I think that I think that's the thing that people like. If you like, it's wrong from. I feel like the idea that bootlegging is wrong because. Okay, let me just break down what Hayden has said in the past.
Why don't I break down what I
Yeah,
said?
let's break down what you said real quick before I go.
Before we
into
get
it.
in, because I already started. My general belief is that because of the limitations of people's ability to access music, which I know, and I've agreed with this, we do live in the internet age, in the streaming age, where you can basically find most of all music on YouTube, or if you have Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, whatever goddamn streaming service, SoundCloud that you want. But I don't think you have to listen to all of an artist's albums to be considered a fan of the artist. Now, I have issues with the word fan in and of itself because it's an abbreviation for fanatic. But I think that...
Okay, wait. Before you hit this, I want you to just understand that I am speaking about when I say fan, I'm speaking about the relatively common definition of the word fan. If you were to start using the word fan to mean fanatic, which is where etymologically speaking, is that a word?
Etymology.
Yeah, right.
It sounded so clear in my head, and then when I tried to put it on...
Right? If you look at the etymology, it does come from the word fanatic, but I feel like the word fan isn't that serious.
Blowing right past that.
You can blow past it, but I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong. And this is because I don't think everyone in the world has access to, the same things that Rashad and I do. Now, Rashad has access to streaming services because he has the financial background to do so. So he can very feasibly listen to all of most artists' discographies. I, on the other hand, have access to the only YouTube as the only streaming service in which I can feasibly access a very large portion of artists' discographies, but I also have to do it with ads and all that stuff. So I technically can. But outside of the United States, there's issues with access to internet, access to electricity, and access to a whole bunch of other things, and zoning of YouTube and stuff like that, in which it makes it very difficult for people to listen to all of an artist albums. And then because we exist in time, if you look in the past, pre the internet age, going back as I'd say before iTunes, so pre 2001, and even then iTunes didn't really start getting a lot of artists on it. They didn't start off with all the music they have now. It took a while. Going back to 2001, because I'm just going to use that as my arbitrary point, you could not feasibly get an entire artist discography within most people's economic means. The average citizen of a Western, better off country could not feasibly acquire an entire discography because they just did not have access to it. Didn't sell. In my example, I'm going to use is my father. My father is a very big AC/DC fan, and he tried to get all the AC/DC albums and singles and bootlegs he could when he was at the peak of his fan, phase in the 80s and 90s. But he couldn't because he did not have access. Now I feel it's weird to say that because my dad and other individuals like him, which he was very common in the way he was about that in that time, there was no really way on earth, even if they had the economic means, and not everyone had the economic means because, people purchase albums way differently than they purchase music now, because you'd buy an album and it's like, okay, this is a lot of money. Here's my money. Here's me giving you that money in exchange for this thing I must keep and use for a long time because it was so expensive. And I'm not willing to say that because he did not have the access to all of AC/DC's discography, he was not a fan.
First and foremost, everything that I'm saying and the basis for everything that I'm saying, just to be perfectly clear, is entirely based on the internet era. So anything before the internet era isn't necessarily what I'm talking about.
All right. Well, then I'm going to say this. Before 2001, are you willing to say that because of the limitations of technology in that time, and really I'm going to go to about 2015, because 2015 was when music started YouTube music and all that stuff started becoming a new thing. It's kind of an arbitrary year, but still 2015. Before 2015, did you have to listen to an entire discography to call yourself a fan, even though it was virtually impossible for the majority of the human population?
I feel like when you first and foremost, when you start talking about the majority of the human population, we need to start thinking about priorities here. The fact that the ability to have this conversation is a luxury in itself.
Just answer the question.
I am answering the question.
You haven't yet.
I haven't yet. I feel like I'm gonna say, however, whenever, around when would you say was it that the record industry was destabilized by illegal online downloads?
Well, it was around destabilized in the late 1990s, but it's still not everyone had access to the internet even in the late 1990s. The majority of Americans did not have a computer in their household.
Okay, so around when would you have said that? So around what point would you say? Because that's the point where I'm going to say that
Well,
my
then
argument
Napster,
begins.
then Napster was shut down.
Yeah, but But do you think Napster is the only place where
No,
you
but
can
Napster
bootleg
was the
music?
majority of places where people could bootleg music.
Yes, but people can bootleg music from a plethora of different
And not
places.
everyone can bootleg music. Not everyone has the technological knowledge.
So let's talk about Americans, for example. Let's just talk about Americans like right now. Like not to exclude the rest of the country because I will get the rest of the world. Because I will get back to that. But let's talk specifically about Americans right now. Most Americans have access to a public library, and most public libraries have access to the internet. You can bootleg music from public libraries.
How do you bootleg music from public libraries then?
You download it offline.
To where? If you had a public library in which you are not allowed to download files.
You're not allowed to download files.
Yes, most public libraries that I've ever been to, they do. If they either let you download it for a brief period of time and then it's wiped, but even then, you can't sit there for like an hour listening to an album.
You can bring a flash drive.
All right, you bring a flash drive. What do you do then?
You download the music and put it on the flash drive.
Where does it go from the flash drive, Michael?
I see what you're saying.
What?
That doesn't make you fucking right. That means I see what you're saying.
All right, so now let me just hit this one note and then we'll talk about current times. Before 2015, did you have to listen to all of an artist's discography to be a fan?
Not particularly.
So no.
At that point, it's more about the attempt.
Okay. Now, post 2015, you think it is completely reasonable for someone to listen to an entire discography? I mean, you do not think it is possible for someone to listen to all but one of an artist's albums and call themselves a fan? This is the most journalistic phrasing I've ever done in my life, though. You can hate
All
me for
but
that.
one of an artist's albums. Wow. Okay. That's really trying to fucking spin it right there.
Yeah, it is. I would like to publicly acknowledge that what I said was just complete biased like journalism right there.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say yes. I think that they have to.
You're gonna say yes.
They need to listen to all the albums.
So you need to listen to just the last album.
All the albums.
Why?
Why?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's an appropriate way to consume music if you're trying to consider yourself a fan of an artist. If you want to really dive into an artist, my definition of fan is more passionate than most people's definition of fan, but it's less passionate than the word fanatic. I feel like for me specifically to consider myself a fan of an artist, I would have need to back catalog their entire discography from what is even possibly available. Because when you talk about every single album, you have albums like Infinite by Eminem that are very difficult to listen to, which I have listened to, by the way. Furthermore, I would say that anybody who is really willing to like have this conversation with me is able to make the argument against this, probably is within the means to do such, to listen to music.
That's because you only talk to those people, Michael.
At the same time, if you don't have the means to listen to music online, most people in America have access to the internet. Is that true?
That is true.
If you don't have access to the internet at all in America, like at all, you don't have access to the internet at all, then statistically speaking, what you have going on in your life is probably more important than whether or not you're a fan of an artist.
That still doesn't. I get what you're saying, that this conversation is a luxury, but it doesn't justify your means, I think.
What do you mean it doesn't justify my means?
That just because someone doesn't have the luxury and the time to make the argument doesn't mean that the issue doesn't exist. This debate, this person can't debate with you.
Yeah, I know.
Issue is the wrong word. I
Yeah,
guess.
regardless, how is it if someone does not have the means to listen to an album and to listen to all the albums in a discography, or maybe not the time, because time is also a luxury, to listen to all the albums in the discography, and I don't call them a fan, is that really that big of a deal?
I mean, I'm not saying it's a big deal, but I'm just saying in terms of the debate.
In terms of the debate, I'd say that they're not a fan.
What if they get upset? All right, so say you're
Well,
walking.
what if they get upset? Then they are wasting their energy.
That is probably true. We are waste. This is a luxurious conversation that is a waste of energy.
Like, what if they get upset that I said that they're not a fan of an artist? Look, and here's the thing: when we talk,
Most people get upset. Most people agree with me here.
yeah, most people will. Most people aren't going. Yeah, most people will agree with you here but I feel like I'm a little bit more intense when it comes to these kinds of things. Let's talk about artists like Aaliyah and like A Tribe Called Quest, artists both who I like very much. I can't consider myself a fan of either of those artists. I can't stream their music and I can't really download their music online because their music wasn't put online. Tribe Called Quest has albums that I can't listen to because they only exist on vinyl. And in order to purchase those albums on vinyl, I would have to go well beyond my economic means to listen to them. However, I've listened to a ton of not Tribe Called Quest. I'm sorry, De La Soul. I am a Tribe Called Quest fan. De La Soul. In order for me to listen to all of their music, in order for me to listen to and go through their discography, I would need to go well outside of my economic means to do so. So I do not and cannot consider myself a fan of De La Soul. Is that wrong?
I mean, I disagree, but that's just because I don't think you have to. And I'm trying to. Where's the line though? Because all right, if you're counting bootlegging, then that means you can also count unreleased material. Do you have to listen to?
Not particularly.
Why?
Because I'm talking about released material. I'm talking about listening to an artist's entire release, commercially released material.
But what's the difference?
What's the difference? The difference is that unreleased material wasn't supposed to be released.
But some released material was not also supposed to be released.
Extrapolate.
Chaos and Disorder, The Vault Old Friends for Sale, The Black Album.
Did Prince choose to release those albums?
No.
Did he ever choose to release those albums?
No.
So you're telling me that those albums were entirely released those albums were entirely released without any consent from Prince at all whatsoever?
The hits and the B-sides, basically, also kind of. They actually paid Prince not to get involved with hits and the B-sides.
So you're telling me that Prince did not at any point consent to the releases of those albums?
Crystal Ball is a bit iffy, kind of, sort of, not really. The Black Album, he got paid for, but he didn't. He said, quote unquote, I am still spiritually against this release.
Yes, but did he or did he not consent to the release of that album?
And the Vault Old Friends for Sale is my golden goose here. He did not consent to. Came out in 1999, and it is a Prince album, which does not make sense because it should be the artist formerly known as Prince album.
Well, then, for the sake of the argument, then we won't count that album.
And what about posthumous albums?
Posthumous albums. I don't think you need to listen to all the posthumous albums in order to consider yourself a fan.
But why? So why does it have to be commercially released?
Because the artist released them. The artist, first and foremost, non-commercial releases. If you really want to go through the back catalog of any artist and go through all their non-commercial releases, you know how incredibly difficult it is to find that music. That music isn't out there. It's difficult to bootleg that music. Any commercial release is relatively easy to bootleg.
But then, but there's no real difference there, except for the consent of the artist, which is not always the case. Because I'm just listing Prince because that's the only artist I really know. But I guarantee you that there are tons of artists that have had material released by their record label against their wishes.
At the same time, there are tons of artists who have had humongous catalogs released with their consent that have been, how do I phrase this?
Just because the existence of one thing does not disqualify. My issue here is that so if you say you can bootleg the music, right?
Yes, you can.
Where does the line stop?
What do you mean, where does the line stop?
Between what you have to listen to be a fan. I
would say commercial releases.
Why? What's the difference? Just because something was commercially released, right? What separates it really? If you're going around that anyway, if you're getting this music for free illegally, both of them without the consent of the artist, by the way.
Also, This is on the subject of bootlegging music. All right. I think that bootlegging music is a double-edged sword. I feel like on one hand, technically stealing is wrong. On the other hand, that is some people's only access to music. I know for a fact that a lot of the music that people who I'm very close to have been exposed to, they would not have been able to have been exposed to without bootlegging.
So let me finish.
So the idea that bootlegging is wrong is, while valid from a legal standpoint, also kind of elitist.
So let me just finish my point here. If you're going with so bootlegging is against the consent of the artist most of the time, 99% of the time, unless an artist says bootleg my shit, which I'm assuming.
I want to see numbers before you start throwing numbers out there.
The majority of artists don't want you bootlegging their shit.
I'm fine with you bootlegging my shit.
I don't care about you. The majority of artists. Can we agree on this? All right, let's agree. One statement at a time. The majority of artists do not want you bootlegging their content.
Yes.
So that is so to bootleg that content is to go.
Actually, the majority of record labels don't want you bootlegging their content.
Neither do the artists, because the artists still get paid from it.
Artists don't get paid from selling music the same way that they did at a point anymore.
Still, you
like that's not you're not fun like it's not at the point where
they still don't want you bootlegging it. They still don't want you bootlegging.
If you bootleg an artist's music, you're not taking food off their tables.
If I go up to Taylor Swift and I ask her, even though she probably gets her money well in advance, can I bootleg your music? She will go no.
When you say she probably gets her money well in advance, please explain. Are you talking about advance payments for record labels? Because that's not really money.
Contracts
Also not really money.
You can sign $100 million contract for a blank amount of albums, and then they also pay you in weird percentages based on albums. These are deals that I've heard of.
Yeah, but at the same time, unless you have a really good contract deal,
we're getting off topic here. Most artists do not want you to steal their shit. Can we agree on that? They do not want you to, even if they don't get paid from it.
Okay.
No, very few artists have said, please steal my stuff.
You don't have to say, please steal my stuff to be okay with people bootlegging your music.
Being okay, whatever. Still, you already said okay. I'm just going to... So to bootleg it is to go without the artist's consent.
Yes.
So if you bootleg the music, that was also that by doing that without the artist's consent, you're throwing that out the window. So if you bootleg one thing, if you can bootleg commercial releases, what's the difference between bootlegging something that's not supposed to be released or a non-commercial release?
I feel like if you begin to bootleg music that either wasn't supposed to be released or is not a non-commercial release, that doesn't not count. I mean, I feel like that counts for something. I feel like it's not. I don't feel like it's as necessary.
But if the commercial releases you have to listen to be a fan, but you're throwing consent out the window with bootlegging, why not the non-commercial, things that were not commercially released? Because
in order to know about all the music that hasn't been released, which is more and more, which is growing both more and more difficult and more easy at the same time. Just because there's so much music that gets leaked now, but at the same time, there's also so much more being done to protect artists from having their music leaked at the same time. Because of that, that's digging much deeper than just commercial releases. Most people that's digging much deeper than just commercial releases. What you know is out there. If you listen to all the music that you know is there, then
you're a super fan.
I'd call you a fan. And if you listen to music that you didn't know was there, that you found out was there from somewhere else, I wouldn't say that makes you any less of a fan.
No, but
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that invalidates anything. I'm saying that where I draw my line is if you listen to all of an artist's commercial releases, then I would consider you a fan.
So this is a personal opinion line.
This whole thing is a fucking personal opinion. No, but I'm trying to mean like the evidence of it. Like is it an evidence-based personal opinion? What do you mean is it an evidence-based personal opinion? So is your opinion supported by like a well thought out series of facts? What are you dude, it's a fucking opinion. Is that not what all people's opinions are? Opinions? Yeah. I try and have factually based opinions. I mean, totally like for example, if I were to say unicorns are stupid. That's not what I was going to say at all. But if I was going to say if I say I don't like watermelon, for example, is that a factually based opinion? That's a preference thing.
This is a statement. This is a belief, I guess, is the better way to put it.
I do not consider someone a fan of an artist if they haven't listened to all of their albums.
Okay. It's just so interesting, isn't it?
Like what do you mean? Is it a factually based opinion whether or not I consider somebody a fan of an artist?
I guess factually based. I guess what I was trying to say is that I'm gonna try to sound this as not as condescending as I possibly can. Did you look at all the options before you made the opinion? Before you made the grand statement, the belief? Like, did you consider non-commercial stuff before you adopted this?
No, I adopted this a long time ago.
And I guess that's what I was questioning, because I thought about this. Like, I'm thinking about it right now a lot. And I don't think we're ever going to be able to persuade each other. But you never ask me why I think it's okay that you don't have to listen to all of them. You just blow right past.
Why do you think it's okay?
Because I think for most artists, it's like kind of absurd. Like, Prince has, 39 purely Prince or the artist commercial releases. Now, you can get about all but two of those completely. Yeah, about all but two of those completely. The Black Album you cannot get commercially, really. And you can still not get all of the gold experience because The Most Beautiful Girl in the World is not currently available. But, so you get 37 complete Prince albums. 37 is a lot. Say about all of them round out to about 45 minutes to an hour long. Like, I know most people don't have the dedication to just be a fan. And I guess, again, this is going to get into a semantic argument of, like, you have a much more solid definition.
When I say fan, by the way, and I don't mean to cut you off.
A much more solid definition of what a fan is than I think most people. Most people, fan is more casual.
Like, when I say fan, like, just because I say that,
I just cut you right back off, by the way. That was great.
I understand. Like, I agree with what you're saying is kind of similar to what I'm saying. My definition of fan isn't casual, like, by any means.
Yeah.
I think that...
No, Rashad, we know it's not casual. We just listened to this whole thing.
I think that to say that you're not a fan of an artist doesn't mean that I'm saying you don't like the artist. And that's what I think. That's the reason that I feel like a lot of people get upset when I say stuff like that. When people hear me say that, there's the reason I feel like they get upset, because you're saying I don't like this artist. This artist makes music that I like. My favorite song is by Maxwell. I've listened to that one song by Maxwell. I'm not a Maxwell fan, but Pretty Wings by Maxwell is my favorite song of all time. I like Maxwell, but I'm not a Maxwell fan.
Why don't you listen to all of their stuff?
Just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Fascinating. So would you go on the record to say that your view is pretentious?
Fuck yeah, it's pretentious.
Okay.
I don't give a fuck. Yeah. All my shit is pretentious. Have you been listening to the podcast for the last 12 episodes? I'm pretentious as shit.
Can you say I, Rashad, am pretentious about this?
I'll take it a step further. I, Rashad, am pretentious about fucking everything.
Can I loop that like a million times when I edit this?
You can, but it'll make the podcast too long and probably no one will ever listen to it again.
Well, a million times would be impossible. I think
it wouldn't be impossible. It definitely would be possible.
No, I think a million times. So let's say that's like a second long. That's a million seconds. How long is a million seconds?
It's a bunch of seconds, dude.
A million seconds is 11 days, 13 hours, 46 minutes, and 40 seconds.
That's definitely fucking possible.
I could not upload that. I don't think any uploader would allow me to upload something that long.
I feel like you just have to try it.
It would be like file size too large.
You just have to try it, dude. Full send, full send.
My computer would probably crash if it was on.
Hey, full send, full send. You just got to try it.
My computer would probably crash and break down if it was on for like 11 straight days.
So I feel like we've come to the agree to disagree stage where we typically get to in this argument, right?
Yes.
All right.
Shaking hands.
This is mutual. This is what is it called when artists?
No, so now I was just gonna be like.
Yeah. Okay.
But it doesn't
What's
work.
it called? What's it called when two warring nations come to a standstill?
Ceasefire.
Yeah.
It's a ceasefire.
This is a ceasefire that we're at right now.
Just gonna uncock my gun.
Yeah.
The bullets.
I feel like we're still at war about this one because
I don't really care.
I don't care either. I don't know why we keep doing this.
Because it's interesting and we both get upset about it. It really is interesting, I think.
So I
so
think
time for
off the pretentious shit to some more pretentious shit.
Shakespeare review by Rashad Davis. Fuck yeah.
All right, so first and foremost, I want to go back to my Titus Andronicus review. I gave it 3.5 stars last time.
Did you actually listen to this past episode out of curiosity?
I listened to a good amount of it. I listened to what you did right there.
Oh yeah, I like that.
I'm gonna drop it down to 2 stars, just because I really I read it and I said 3.5 stars because I was feeling it in the moment. But then I thought about it based off some other Shakespeare works that I'd read in the past. And Titus Andronicus, which I do like. I did enjoy reading it, and I would enjoy reading it again. I think it's a fascinating story, but I feel like at the same time, it's not one of his best. It's not really like a great story. I feel like for me to give it 3.5 stars raises the bar for all Shakespeare.
So it's a 2 stars for Shakespeare, right? But what is it in stars compared to the rest of playwriting?
I haven't read every play. Like in history of playwriting,
It's probably still up there.
probably not.
Because I bet there's some real shit plays out there.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but I feel like that no, this is a pretentious topic for another time.
I feel like all talking about playwriting must be done pretentiously.
Not particularly.
Yeah.
This is a conversation for another time.
All right.
So this go around, I decided to go back and read the first Shakespeare play that I've ever read, which is
Twelfth Night
by
William Shakespeare.
by Billy Shakes.
Billy Shakes.
Billy
Shakes sounds like my stripper name.
I fucking love Twelfth Night. It's always been one of my favorite Shakespeare plays.
The Night of 12.
I feel like that's a little bit biased. I've seen it.
Beyonce.
I read it first. The first time I read it was in 6th grade. Hayden was in my class.
Mm-hmm. I was the priest.
They made us do that play on stage, and it wasn't good because we weren't really theater
Because we
kids.
were 6th graders, and
Yeah.
none of us were I think only 2 of the people in that class consistently did musical or traditional theater throughout, to the end of high school.
Kind of, sort of. I mean, I wouldn't count myself because I didn't really consistently do it up until.
Then you're all a bunch. There's only just one. There's only one.
Yeah, there is only one. Shout out to that guy.
A very small fraction of this class actually went on to perform in plays and stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, back to my story that I was telling. After that,
No, you're not allowed to tell your story.
Several years later, I'm gonna blow right past that. Several years later, full send. Several years later, I saw 12th Night done at my high school, and it just kind of brought me back. So I figured that if I wanted to review a play that I liked on the podcast, just to kind of get into this, the first comedy that I'm gonna review is gonna be 12th Night. 12th Night is about Viola and Sebastian, right? That's her brother.
Mm-hmm.
Viola and Sebastian. I totally know his name. I just forgot. I brain farted.
Sebastian.
Who are identical twins. One's a boy, one's a girl.
Which means they're not identical, but that's a story for another day.
It's absurdist comedy.
No, that's not absurdist comedy. That's 16th century understanding of biology.
Anyway, they get lost at sea and shipwrecked, and so Viola decides to pretend to be a boy, and then she gets into this awkward love triangle. Then Sebastian comes back and marries Olivia, who was in love with Viola pretending to be a boy, who the Duke Orsino was in love with Olivia, and she was in love with him, and he was in love with Olivia, and it was like a big love triangle. And then the brother came and fucked everything up. Meanwhile, in the background, this is probably some of my favorite shit about the play.
Mm-hmm. The real comedy stuff.
Probably my favorite shit about the play is the subplot with Malvolio, because
really, if you think about it, none of the love triangle is like the essential parts of the comedy. Like most,
it is the essential story. Like
it's the plot, but like most of the comedy stuff is around Sir Toby, Andrew, Malvolio,
Maria,
and Maria. Yeah.
All that whole thing. Basically, the way that kind of went down was Malvolio was Olivia's servant, and he was a dick. And they were like, fuck Malvolio, we're gonna fuck with him. So they made him start acting like a dumbass around Olivia because
yellow cross-gartered stockings like an idiot.
They're like, you need to be rude to everybody and then smile profusely when you're around her. And then so he just did that, and then she was just like, "What the fuck is he doing?" You put him in jail. We're like, "No jail." She put him in a closet. She put him in the hole.
The hole, like in The Dark Knight Rises. That's exactly it.
Yeah. And then at the end, everyone got married.
Literally.
The way that Shakespeare
writes
comedies work is basically like some fuckery happens and then people get married. So the really only way to assess the comedies is based on the quality of said fuckery. And I think that this play honestly dabbles in some pretty high quality fuckery, and I can understand why it's regarded as one of Shakespeare's best comedies. So I want to give this play. The reason I had to bump Titus Andronicus way the fuck down, I might even give it 1.5. I think it's a good play. I mean, I personally think it's a good play. It's just like it's
someone changing their opinions
when I
in
really
2019, unheard of.
When I really thought about it, like after the shock value kind of wore off of it, it was all the characters are kind of one dimensional in Titus Andronicus. And in Twelfth Night,
and it's a bit rapey.
Yeah, and racist. In Twelfth Night, I feel like I understand why people would say that it's one of Shakespeare's best comedies, and I feel like this does deserve at least like a 3.5 to a 4. I think it's a great play. Like it's absolutely excellent. It's just I love it. I love it so much.
I feel like the fact that the main plot of the play is like the not really the funniest part, and the funny stuff is the stuff going on like behind the scenes is a good allegory for life. Because like there's all the people out there in the world that are politicians and big decision makers and lawmen and all that jazz, and they're boring as fuck. And then there's us sitting in a room at a time of day being a bunch of fucking idiots, and we really know what's going on, and we're funny as hell.
Yeah. Why does Hayden think that he's funny? No, I'm fine.
Why is Hayden nice? Because I am, motherfucker.
I feel like Twelfth Night. I feel like the main plot also is funny though. It's not boring. I feel like it's interesting.
It's interesting, but it's not like the.
It's not what has me laughing every time I read it and every time I watch it. What has me laughing is what they did to Malvolio. I think that was hilarious.
That's really fucked up. That's a topic for a different day.
Yeah, we can get into that at some point.
We can get into Michael's okay with being abused by people.
That's not at all necessarily true.
Well, that's not at all what you were saying, but I'm going to make the accusation.
You can make the accusation.
You're a rabbit.
Fuck you, Hayden.